Twice Upon a Planet.
Part 3.
Dāce ran into the stormy darkness, seeing his way only by use of one of the hydrogen-powered hover lights above him. When he finally reached the middle area of the tall grass field, a shadowy figure was standing there. It was pouring really hard, so he couldn't see too well. As he closed in, the figure turned around. Blinking over the water coming down his hair and eyelids, he saw who it was.
Nev, is that you?
Dāce shivered in the cold.
Yes, Dāce. What are you doing out here? Come to catch bugs?
No. Actually, I wanted to study this field. I'm sure by now you know about my sister.
Dāce gripped his freezing shoulders, noticing Nevlin held an umbrella.
Tyrelsa, yes. That brings me to what I wanted to say, but not here.
Nevlin handed Dāce an extra weather guard.
Can you find the way back?
Dāce took it from him, answering with a waving hand gesture to follow.
Let's go! Hurry!
The two drenched lads hurriedly trudged their way back to the house. Muddy and tired, they were welcomed inside by Nendi, who had been waiting not so patiently for Dāce to return. She laid eyes on the two drowned rats standing in her living room.
Where have you been, Dāce?
Dāce wiped his lips from rain.
I went to the field. Nothing there.
Nevlin nudged him in the side.
Almost nothing.
Nevlin did a quaint gentleman's bow to Nendi in the prediction of introduction.
Ma, this is my old mate, Nevlin Corton. Nev, this is Nendi, mother of Tyrelsa and I.
Pleased to make your acquaintance, Mrs. Hummins.
And you too, Mr. Corton.
She was intrigued by his being so courteous. She smiled. Dāce announced his need to dry off and left the room most formally. Nevlin and Nendi sat across from each other in separate chairs. Nevlin was in his usual black clothing, average old earth leather shoes, and a dark, dusty blue conical-crowned bowler hat. It had been obtained from a very ancient dwelling, just lying there in some rubble.
Mrs. Hummins, I suppose you're wondering how Dāce knows me.
Why, yes. That's just what I was going to ask next. How did you meet him? He hardly goes out anywhere, and up until recently he rarely even spoke.
Ha ha! If you'll pardon me, I just find it amusing to think that a clever chap like him wouldn't speak. Unbelievable.
It's true.
She took up a cup of raspberry tea and sipped.
Well now, Mrs. Hummins, I really did come here for a reason. It's about your daughter, Tyrelsa.
He took off his hat. Nendi's eyes grew very big. She nearly dropped her cup.
What?
She fell to the floor.
Oh, please tell me. I have to know.
All right, calm down, Mrs. Hummins. Have a seat.
Nendi took deep breaths, sitting back in her chair.
First of all, a little about myself. I'm a professor of science, something of a rarity on Earth, I know. To speed things up a bit, let me just say I've been doing a long study of the asteroidal relationship between moons and planets. I use my laser scan telescope to view the outer space for this study. But I am currently fixed on a very strange object traveling in and around the inner solar system. The last I saw it, it was near the moon planet Titan and heading in the direction of planet Mars. Now what it truly is, I can't say. But I have a hunch, if you excuse the old Earth term, that it's a spaceship. My theory is Tyrelsa was taken by this spaceship for some unknown purpose and has some sort of business with Mars.
Nendi was speechless. This idea was ultimately ridiculous. Aliens? We've explored everywhere and haven't seen nor heard anything with enough brains to create such a disturbance. Then again, the universe is an extremely large place. It's not impossible that we might have overlooked something, somewhere. Yes, it's difficult to grasp, but if this man is really telling it like it is, we've been visited. She thought of all this as Nevlin sat quietly, awaiting words of understanding. Nendi rested her head on her hand and looked at him with an "I know exactly what you're saying" look.
Me and Dāce were just talking about this. He dreamt she spoke to him. He told me she said the word Titan in the dream.
Really? No kidding. Then I guess I'm talking old news here. So, now that we all know what's going on, what shall we do about it?
I don't know.
She got up and went over to the triangular window. Nevlin joined her. They both gazed out into the heavens. It had stopped raining. The stars were shining through the blackness like fireflies in the cosmos.
Sometimes I think it's all pointless. I mean, why should we bother to explore other worlds when we have so much right here? This is something I don't understand. What's it all about?
Nevlin tuned in, admiring the twinkling of the brightest star.
Maybe it's one of humanity's ways of self-progressing. There hasn't been a person alive who didn't want to know their own origin, and the reverent scientists will go to see to know.
That's true, I guess. I just wish I could see Tyrelsa again. It worries me to think she's all alone to face whoever or whatever is out there.
Still frozen in the invisible cage, Tyrelsa had fond, fading memory remnants of communicating with Dāce, though she had no idea how she could have contacted him from so far away. Jenka Hummins was free to roam, and so he did. He thought it to be an extraordinary place. All at the same time, wanted to get back to his own ship. Something started to rematerialize on a lighted side of the room. It grabbed Jex's attention. It was Zikar, back again. Jex recognized the alien and stepped up to it.
Where am I?
You are our orbit-bender craft.
I've never heard of a ship like that. Explain to me why you've taken me away from my crew.
Explanation and decision will be initiated at final arrival. We have your motto.
Zikar floated over to the transparent Tyrelsa, allowing Jex to watch her appear out of nowhere. Jex ran to the girl to see her more clearly. Tyrelsa wiggled her hands and examined herself to make sure she was all in one piece. Looking outward, there she saw Jenka Hummins, her father, looking back at her with a treasuring smile.
Are you all right, miss?
Dad? Don't you recognize me?
Tyrelsa, is that really you? What in the cosmos are you doing out here?
Yes, Dad.
She hugged him tight.
It's a while telling. I've really missed you.
Same here. I haven't seen you since you were a twinkling. You really grown up to be a fine young lady. How's your mother?
Thanks, Dad. She's fine.
Who or what is that misty being with the funny talk?
Your guess is as good as mine, but he seems pleasant enough. Most of the time he doesn't even move. At least that's what I've seen so far.
Tyrelsa changed the subject.
I think the others back on Earth may be worried of my safety.
I'm sure they are. And what's more, my crew are probably going insane looking for me.
Resembling great hesitation, the alien observed this new form of human expression. Zikar never witnessed it before, allowing Jex and Tyrelsa to have their reunion, but it wouldn't hold for long. In came a thought message from the organizer. They were instructed to follow through with Accordance 1, but the being was beginning to stray from plans. He wanted to try a transmission, to experience what is the mind of a human. The creature progressed his way to the two humans huddling in an offset corner.
We communicate.
Zikar left them and went over to the familiar markings on the wall. The light flickered as it came from below. The being floated into it. Moments later, after a terrible, unearthly scream, a shimmery man appeared. Mildly nonplussed with this demonstration, Jex sighed in utter boredom. He'd seen more impressive things from other planets, waiting around in micro-water tanks. In this way, his perception was reduced. Tyrelsa, on the other coin, found the creature to be highly captivating. She always wanted to know about outsiders to her humdrum of a solar system. What do they think? How do they speak? What is it they find interesting? Their knowledge of the cosmos. Zikar, the man, re-emerged dressed in an amethyst uniform, holding a blank but gentle face. Oddly enough, he vaguely resembled someone Tyrelsa knew.
Ah, the rock patch.
In her mind, almost instantly, she sensed the being say,
Memory of this grounder was essenced by now readings. We are connection through one individual.
Using human form, he would make signs. He held out his hand absolutely flat with his palm facing down, then folding 3 fingers. It was directed towards Tyrelsa.
Me?
She pointed to herself. Jex stood defensively in front of Tyrelsa.
Now, wait just an orbit-bending minute. What do you want with my daughter?
Zikar had his arms to his side. Not a sound, not a movement, not a blink of an eye. He didn't even look at them, for his eyes could not work, nor did he know how to move a mouth. Just stood there and stared. Tyrelsa stepped out and confronted her father.
Don't worry, Dad. I already know he won't harm me. We have this mutual consciousness. Difficult to explain, but I can understand him.
If you think so. Personally, I don't trust anything that can't speak English.
Don't say that. That's shallow. I thought you were better than that.
Oh, I am. It's just that since the last bout with extraterrestrials, my view's never been the same.
Well, I'm not some vulnerable little girl anymore, and I'm not afraid. Watch, you'll see what I mean.
Tyrelsa decided she'd go to him. If there was ever a chance for finding out why they were here, she was the only link. The brave girl walked up to the stranger from another world. He held out his other hand. She let him lead the way. Jex rubbed his eyes to make sure he wasn't hallucinating when at last the amethyst man and Tyrelsa appeared to pass seamlessly through a wall. Zikar could extract the matter in which solid surfaces were formed. Without even being aware of it, she had been enlightened. All Tyrelsa physically did was simply join hands. Although mentally she can feel an immediate presence, warmth, compassion, immense intelligence, justified purpose. She could see Zikar's solar system being destroyed by some kind of explosion. Then nothing. Jex was left out of this experience, possessing faint fears about the life form. Being human, it was nearly impossible to comprehend the motivations of such a complex species. He had his prejudices. Zikar returned with Tyrelsa, changed back into original form, and confronted them once more.
We have entered the realms of stellar light form 5. Our intention will reveal.
What is your intention?
Our intention is not to endanger you.
What do you need with us?
Further questions will be denied in this present connection.
With that, the ship began to shrink down from its original size. First, it was as big as a planet, then it got to the width and height of a city. Apparently, this was a display of their technological capabilities, though there must have been a much more practical reason in the works. Tyrelsa and Jex sat quietly while the ship went full speed to the Red Planet. To the ordinary, it was nothing more than a very large set of odds, ends, and thingamajigs. But nevertheless, Nevlin wanted them all to see that he truly was presenting the Hummins with a conclusion based on facts.
Welcome to my humble abode. Usually, I don't share my space, but under these circumstances, I have a purpose for showing you.
He took Nendi and Dāce to another room with Titian walls, nothing inside except for a huge 30-foot wide gray rectangular patch on the ceiling. Nendi pointed upward, tilting her head.
Looks like you have a mad old earth painter working for you, Mr. Corton.
Nevlin looked at her with a sly expression, retrieved a rubber ball from his coat pocket, throwing it directly at the front wall. From there it bounced to the floor, then careened past a nearby chalk line. The energetic little spheroid, about the size of a large marble, finally met its destination, hitting a small yellow button located at the top of a hard-to-reach corner in the high ceiling. This triggered the great patch to begin lowering down. Displayed atop was a ride they couldn't believe. Nevlin walked aboard the impressive, slick, oblique onyx trapezoidal vessel.
What is that, Nev?
This is our solution. Its technical name is A5R Tetranine. Using this baby, we, all three of us, can travel to Mars within a matter of 1 hour.
I've heard of flying machines before, but I've never actually seen one.
Nendi looked amazed. Dāce got a little closer to Nevlin and the vessel.
I thought possession of such a thing was illegal to Earth.
Well,
Nevlin stepped down the ladder and rejoined them.
there's a lengthy tale behind that one.
So go on then.
All right. As you may know by now, I'm a scientist, in the traditional sense. During my early years spent on Mars, before flying machines were illegalized on Earth, I studied at Journey University. There, I discovered a small-time business called Astrostar Incorporated. They had many technologies which I found interesting.
Nevlin continued, recollecting his last days spent on the Red Planet.
It had been one of those rare cloudy Martian afternoons. I was but a young chap, about 19. In the city, I worked for Astrostar Incorporated in First Conventional Aeromechanics.
Come here, boy!
Yes, coming, sir. I put down some instruments and walked over to a nearby hallway where a rustic middle-aged man stood waiting.
Today I'm going to show you our newest addition to A-Star.
Putting his hand on my shoulder. Thank you, that would be great, Mr. Benchwall. Benchwall and I left the building talking amongst ourselves until we reached the boundaries of the Fluent McRae Center. We went into the entranceway of a lone-standing structure which looked like an old Earth double-decker bus that had been compacted. It was located in the middle of nowhere with a shock fence around it. Inside were stairs leading to some sort of secluded underground complex. I noticed the soil in there carried a certain rich original color of red-orange with speckled pieces of icy residue, visible only to the detailed trained eye. Then I began to recognize my surroundings. We were stepping through the famous Ancient Mars Simulator, a discontinued tourist attraction there. What are we doing here?
Just wait.
We approached the door to another area, one I wasn't familiar with. There was a guard staring with eyes which didn't move. The peg-shaped 4-foot contraption spoke as a male human. But it was clear, this guy ran on silicon chips and oil, among other things.
Please remove magnetics, silver or other interfering metallic substances before entry.
I handed in my overcoat and watch.
Don't mind the security. Just let them have your shoes and follow me.
Benchwall rushed past the guard. Finally, I caught up to him, though I had taken his security advice a little too seriously. The room I followed him to was semicircular, light green. In midpoint, beneath a red laser sheet, the jet-black product lay pulsating.
My dear fellow, what happened to our dress code?
The frail man noticed my being presented in sock feet. Sir, you told me back at the gates to hand over my footwear.
Yes, but I didn't mean you should... Never mind.
So where's this new thing we came all this way for?
Ah.
Benchwall tripped a floor-sunken switch, and the lasers turned off.
Meet the A5R Tetranine 61,000. She's capable of interplanetary travel almost immediately.
Wow, I've always wanted to take a flying machine out for a spin. Benchwall responded by turning the lasers back on.
Oh, you're not here to drive, Mr. Corton. We've chosen you to devise a better, faster, more efficient journey-quality version of this A5R spacecraft.
Well, I don't know if I'm the appropriate choice for this type of thing. I mean, I haven't acquired enough experience with...
While you work, we will accommodate you with anything you need. When you're finished, return the improved ship to our bodymen at A-Star offices.
That was all. I was left alone with the notion of being used. Through the following weeks, I worked diligently. For me, it wasn't difficult because I knew a lot about the components involved and how to put it all together. In my spare time, I would add to my writings, which soon became 2 new books. By the time my second book was released, I had finished the project. The next day, I received word that my second book, my first soon to follow, had been globally banned. A colleague of mine told me that I was deemed a criminal of dual Earth, and that a certain group of powers wanted to see me destroyed. After hearing this startling news, I wasted no time. The next morning, I did my usual routine of going to work at the Astrostar building, but this time, instead of gluing together thrusters and pinoteps, I snuck out and headed down to the company's best-kept secret. There was the Tetranine, ready for flight. I began loading supplies and equipment onto the ship. Suddenly, I heard a loud rumble coming from outside. It sounded like a massive crowd trying to bust their way in. I quickly boarded the sleek flying machine and closed the doors from beneath my feet. The roar became much louder. I knew who they were. While almost everyone had such a funny attitude towards me, I sensed a circle of madness, shouts of crazed anger, rising up like a giant arm, pounding at the main entrance. Almost set to go, I strapped myself in tight and started her up. Just as I was lifting off the ground, I watched as the gates finally gave way to a chaotic mess of people, the entire Astrostar junto among them. Some were even fellow colleagues and co-workers.
Nevlin climbed back into the Tetranine, peering out the cosmic ray shield.
It was that narrow escape which will now let us make this trip.
Without further ado, Mr. Corton?
Yes, it's time for us to leave.
Dāce took 10 steps back.
I'm not getting on that thing.
But you have to.
No!
Dāce folded his arms in finality.
Oh, come on, Dāce. Are you gonna go tap it on us now? What's the problem?
It's against the law. And plus, my absentee of a father is part of all that space travel muddle, and I don't care for it.
Fine. We'll just leave you here then.
Nendi walked over to Nevlin, sitting in the flying machine, and proposed a solution.
Maybe I can talk him into it.
All right, but best you hurry. Time is not in our favor.
She talked to Dāce, who was facing away, giving a cold shoulder.
Listen to me. Tyrelsa needs us. All of us. Your father didn't leave because he wanted to get away from you, or your sister, or me. He left because he wanted to experience life in space, discover new things.
So, what's your point?
My point, Dāce, is that your father is doing what he wants to do in life, and you shouldn't be angry at him for it. You should be happy for him. He was there to watch you grow up. He raised Tyrelsa through a good some of her days, and you two kids grew up great.
Dāce frowned and shook his head.
I still don't like to knowingly break the law.
It's not what you're making it out to be, son. We've got to save Tyrelsa. Isn't that more important right now?
All right. I'll go.
Mr. Corton, He's changed his mind.
It's about time. Everyone on.
Nendi hopped aboard the A5R Tetranine 61000 flying machine. Dāce followed with some hesitation. Nevlin sent the command. The wall opened up in two wide doors, allowing free rise for takeoff, and they blasted away into the great void of space, destined for dual Earth. They were scurrying around like little frantic ants because the alarm sounded. Something was about to happen, and they didn't want to be in the way. But it was nearly impossible for them. They saw it, and they knew. The sky was pastel blue, with Deimos and Phobos looming in the distance. The cities constructed over centuries dazzled in the bold sunlight. Some metal facades reached up as tall as the clouds. The air being so clear, one could see the great extinct volcanoes vividly. In most ice-ridden places, there were passels of small dark plants remaining from the first colonists. By all accounts, it had been a beautiful day. Within the main Tower of Reason, which overlooked upon the entire horizon of urban creation, the voices of men bounced off hollow tan walls. One man banged his fist on a conference table.
Concrete! Concrete! We can't just let it come here!
A second man sitting next to him.
Yes, I know. Perhaps we should shoot it down.
I've already tried. It's useless. It's going to be here very soon. There's nothing we can do.
A third man.
I propose we welcome it.
Welcome it? Are you mad?
No, I'm not mad. But you should consider the fact that we can't stop it. Therefore, the best thing to do is wait and maybe help it along.
At the head of the table, the first man stood up from his big leather and mahogany chair, quickly making his way towards where the third man sat looking pleased over the clock. It was soon time to leave the meeting.
We could be talking about invasion here. Do you know what that means?
He whipped around, grabbed the third man by his thin teal collar, raking him up out of his seat. He stared down at him with cold, dark brown provincial eyes, causing the poor fool to adopt a stupefied look on his face.
It means we lose everything, and you wanna...
He made a sarcastic, frolicking gesture with his other hand.
Help it along!
Then, letting the man loose,
There's no telling what this thing will do.
outside the window, a circular landing crest stretching out and over as wide as an old Earth football field came to view. The ship, previously motioning through the atmosphere, set down. The men got up to look out the giant window.
Oh no, it's too late!
I don't think that's it.
Then who just landed? Many eyes within the watching room fixated on the strange new craft. Its doors opened with a gust of steam. From the black tin can emerged three figures.
Are they from Earth?
I think so.
But how can that be? There aren't any space vehicles on that planet.
He tugged his coat.
Hasn't been updated there for decades.
Obviously, someone broke through the bannings of possession and knowledge of high technology on docile little foist Earth.
Well then, let's go and meet these pests.
The men stepped out of their solid, shiny chrome tower, out to greet the newcomers. They reached the space vehicle, shaking hands with what appeared to be the group's front man.
So, we meet again, boys. Destroy any lives lately?
Ah, it's you. Come back to corrupt this perfect society we have here.
Teeth like a maniraptor, he had a very terrible scowl to his appearance. It was as if it had been permanently engraved in every corner, every line, every curve in his face. The others, who looked alarmingly alike, steadily worked their way towards the unguarded flying machine.